For the past 15 years, Linda Goldis of Sarasota, Florida, has been on a quest, trying to get her husband Al to listen to her.
Al, did you call the guy from the chimney, the stucco man, to fix the hole in the chimney? Al?
Al's the classic tune-out husband. When Linda talks, he seems to completely ignore her.
Al? Al, you hear anything I'm saying?
According to one poll, 77% of American wives complain that their husbands just don't listen to them.
He doesn't listen to me. It has to be an earth-shattering thing for him to listen to me. It's not as important as what he's doing.
Even as we interviewed Linda, we looked over, and sure enough, Al had already tuned out. Did he catch anything his wife just said?
Not really, no. Not just some voices I heard. I really didn't.
Al's a Major League Baseball scout, always on the phone making deals.
Yeah, you got a middle infielder that can run and throw like that.
And when the phone rings, he snaps to attention.
Who's that?
497, that sounds like a...
But if it's not about work, he tunes out all over again.
That's what will happen. Sometimes anything will hold his attention, but that's not something that I will say, and something else will grab his attention. And it gets me crazy.
Al?
Yeah.
Did you hear that?
Oh, no, I heard the phone.
But she's sitting there talking about you. Aren't you remotely interested in what she's saying about you?
Yeah, I've heard this before, so I go on because it wasn't really that significant.
And what do you think, Linda, when you hear that he really is sort of thinking, yeah, I've heard that?
It's very frustrating. Being listened to kind of translates into being loved for me. And when I'm not listened to, it makes me feel that I'm not a priority and that I'm not loved and respected.
So is this man completely insensitive, or is his wife just a nag? Well, the answer is it's not that simple. We've discovered something that many couples have long suspected, something that could be the key to saving your relationship. Turns out men and women listen differently, and if you don't know exactly how your partner listens, you could be headed for trouble.
Case in point, Al. He claims a good excuse for tuning Linda out. He's concentrating on the careers of the young baseball players who depend on him.
I got to see whether this is a kid that we're going to consider for draft or not. Can't worry about a chimney. I'm worried about a player.
Al was on listening burnout, and I was a listening wannabe. He had to listen all day long on the phone. So when it came to having any extra listening ability, he just didn't have it. And I, in turn, I didn't have anybody to listen to me.
So they chalked up their listening troubles to Al's demanding job. Made sense, until Linda tried a new strategy. To get Al to listen to her while they were in the car, away from the phone, the TV, and other work distractions.
Toby was hoping that she would get like Florida and maybe, think of moving here. What would you think about that, about having her live with us for like a little while? Al?
Yeah.
Did you hear what I said?
She tried and failed. Al still not listening.
What were you thinking about?
I was just thinking about this kid that we worked out the other day.
Is there ever a time where I can get you to listen to me?
So we called in listening expert Kitty Watson of Tulane University for some advice.
Al, did you hear what I said?
She has a very complex theory about husband tune-out.
All right, let's stop for a second. What was going on there?
Well, I think you see the two clashes of listener styles, and this clash could also be the breakdown in their relationship.
It has to do with the way we each listen to the world around us. Turns out we don't all do it the same way. In fact, there are several distinct categories of listeners, and she has a test to tell what kind you are. Problem is, sometimes the man has a style of listening that's not compatible with his wife's way of listening.
I'm more content and then action-oriented.
I'm only people. I'm low in everything else.
Linda falls into the category of people-oriented listener. She's sharply tuned in to things like personal problems, details about friends and relatives.
Okay, people-oriented listeners are most concerned with how listening influences their relationships with others.
And you are.
I'm people-oriented.
You are. When she tries to help, she's very sensitive to people's feelings. She really is. She feels the problem.
Now here we have this other person, the male, not listening to the wife in this case.
I was just kind of reviewing his skill level to see what would be the most appropriate place to put him.
He is thinking about his own agenda, what he wants to get done, what he wants to do, and so he tunes her out. They're after getting the goal accomplished.
Al is what she calls an action-oriented listener. For him, it's what you do that counts, not what you feel or talk about.
How do you know whether a guy's listening? When a man's on first base and you give him a signal to steal second base and you look up and the guy's standing on second base, you knew he was listening. If you looked up and he was standing on first base, very simply, he wasn't listening.
Unfortunately for the Golduses, action-oriented listeners and people-oriented listeners are at opposite ends of the spectrum and likely to clash. For example,
It was almost like something that was the last on the list of priorities was our relationship and him listening to me.
Linda is pouring her heart out to us, and as a people-oriented listener, she expects Al to be looking at her, noticing her body language as she talks. Instead, action-oriented Al begins making baseball notes. To him, relationship talk is unproductive downtime. He figures he may as well get some work done.
So the relationship and listening became like something that was like the last thing on the list.
When Linda finally notices, she's offended.
He was right. You were writing while I was talking? I didn't pick up that he was writing.
So what can she do to get him to listen a little better?
Not to just go on and on and on with information, but to maybe organize it. I have two things I'd like to talk to you about that are real important to me. Do you have time now?
Now, just because he's not quite paying attention to her at the moment doesn't mean that he doesn't value her, does it?
It doesn't mean that at all, but she might interpret it that way.
When you listen to somebody, you have to look at them. That's one rule of listening.
She's assuming I'm not listening, but I really am. Even though I'm writing.
But if he wasn't looking at her, why would she assume otherwise?
I don't know why she would otherwise.
So we have to show people that we're listening. We can't just assume that because they love us or we love them that we're going to get credit for listening, because we will read a message that if I'm not listened to over and over again, maybe I should find somebody that wants to listen.
So Linda tries a strong message to Al in action-oriented language his brain can understand. Baseball talk.
Can you imagine how you would feel if, let's say, you had a ball player that you were explaining to him how you wanted him to hit and how you wanted him to turn his body, and while you were explaining this to him, he was kind of looking up in the air and like looking down on the ground and like stomping the dirt. His body language was telling you like he didn't hear you at all. How would that make you feel? You would feel a lack of respect.
I understand that phase when you put it in that perspective. But you see, my intentions all along was not like a guy who was outwardly showing disrespect.
And I felt hurt, and I felt that you heard me when you said that just now. I felt hurt.
So, it only took us, 15 years to reach this level. As I said, I'm a slow learner.